5:02 a.m. 72 degrees Fahrenheit. What's poppin', people? It's Dante getting my morning started here along the Schuylkill River Trail in Philadelphia. Today I'm wearing the Rogue 40-pound plate carrier, 20 plates or 20-pound plates in the front, 20 pounds in the back. Yeah, check it out. Bright and early, dawn. This is my favorite time to practice photography now. You know, there's something about practice and this notion of practice within the realm of photography that maybe isn't talked about as much. And I genuinely mean when I say practice, right? Similar to that of a basketball player hitting the court and practicing their shot. You know, I think that this is something worth considering. This is something worth taking to heart, actually. You know, where a basketball player hits the court each day, practicing their free throw, practicing dribbling, in the hopes of increasing the likelihood of them making their shots, right? You know, handling the ball more efficiently, right? There's these very simple actions that we can partake in each and every day that will increase the likelihood of us finding success with our photography, similar to that of a basketball player. You know, where I see the street as my court, right? The street is my arena, and the street is my canvas for me to draw upon. And so embracing practice each day is refining the way that I see the world and allowing me to remain sharp, right? Where I consider this notion of strong photographer, strong photographs. And you know what this essentially means is the physically stronger photographer will inevitably make stronger photographs. And considering the medium of photography being this very physical thing where we go out there and we walk, we move our physical bodies through the world, yeah, maybe we should consider our physical bodies more, and we should consider our strength and the physiological power that we possess, because ultimately that's what will motivate you to get out of the door. And the motivation, quite literally, derives from your legs, the movement of your body. And so when you think of this notion of strength and photography, you know, I consider weightlifting, right? I'm wearing this 40-pound vest right now, and I'm going for this walk for an hour. And, you know, right now I feel my shoulders firing, my back, my, you know, legs, my feet, you know, wearing the barefoot shoes. You know, all of my body is currently firing, all of the different muscle groups. And make a photo. Oh, and by the way, I'm using the Ricoh GR3X Urban Edition. I don't really use the GR3X, so actually I figure this is the perfect day to discuss this notion of practice, because yeah, I actually really need to practice with the 40mm in general. And yeah, I figured that this would be the perfect day to discuss this notion of practice, because I've only ever used the 3X a handful of times. And so yeah, I actually genuinely need to practice, but I need to practice every day despite the focal length. But yeah, this is just the perfect time to do so. And so yeah, regarding this notion of weightlifting, right, I have this weighted vest on, all of my muscles are firing. You know, the more I increase the weight on my shoulders, the more I lift, generally, the more I walk, the more the more I eat, you know, the larger my muscles grow, where I enter this hypertrophy of the enlargement of my muscles. And so, you know, the more I use my muscles, the more they will grow. And so I believe that this is the goal, right? Is to enter this state of hypertrophy. And so when you consider hypertrophy, the opposite being atrophy, which is the loss of muscle mass, right? The decrease in size of your muscles. And this is something that we don't want, right? We don't want to lose muscle, right? And I think we can apply this to photography, where the more that you, or the less that you use your eyes, the less that you use your camera, well, it's inevitable that you're potentially going to lose it. You're going to fall off that wheel. And I think that consistency and repetition is one of the most critical things to consider for street photography, where you really have to be dedicated and out there practicing daily to remain on your toes and to remain in this flow state of production. This is extremely slippery because it rained. But alas, we march on the edge of chaos. And so when I do this parkour in the morning and I'm walking along this pole where I could fall into the river, I remind myself that courage is required, right? The courage to go out there and to practice street photography, to become closer to life itself, both physically and emotionally, where a street photographer is merely responsible for positioning themselves on the front lines of life, right? Physically and emotionally close to life itself. And that requires courage, right? Core meaning heart. You know, I believe that heart and courage is everything. And oh, look at that single window. I love when there's a single window. Oh, by the way, I have P mode, snap focus infinity. I have +1 on the exposure compensation, and I'm shooting at 1/13 of a second. Yeah, this is why the Ricoh is awesome. You can shoot at 1/13 of a second, baby, and it looks fine. You know, it has, I think, built-in image stabilization or something. Yeah, you just gotta hold your hand steady and you can easily manage to photograph in these extremely light or dark conditions, you know, where you can't even probably see me right now. And yeah, so what is a photograph, right? A photograph is not necessarily this light on surface or a moment, a paper choice, a film stock, color, black and white. You know, a photograph is a reflection of your courage. It's a reflection of your soul. And when I contemplate this notion of courage, yeah, this should be at the forefront. And when you put courage at the forefront, your curiosity will follow. So you have to go forward onto the streets with this sort of fearlessness, you know, where life is unpredictable. You know, any moment could be your last, you know, and you never really know what you could run into on the streets. Just yesterday I saw this guy coming up from the subway and some dude just smacked his phone out of his hand. You know, my mom was telling me yesterday when we were eating dinner, she was telling me about some guy was getting punched in the back of the head just randomly. And I'm not, you know, saying these to instill fear in anybody, but actually to remove the fear itself, where you should actually have the worst possible outcome in the back of your head and realize that maybe the worst thing that'll happen is someone telling you to delete your picture. Someone may get slightly physical with you or try to grab your camera. These things actually don't happen when you use a Ricoh, right? Where it's so discreet and no one really notices you because you look like a tourist. So yeah, I would say that these things aren't really of our concern, but to be honest with you, what's the worst that can happen, right? I guess death, but yeah, maybe we just shouldn't fear that. And so yeah, when I head down this trail each and every day, I practice with repetition, right? I hit this sculpture each day and I photograph this sculpture, right? Where I approach this sculpture, and I usually just pass by and make a quick snapshot. But just for this demonstration, I'll explain to you how I think about things. When I look at the sculpture, right, this inanimate object, I think that we can uplift this mundane thing and give life to it through a photograph, right? Where the goal of a photographer is to create something from nothing, to sort of just work with what you got, embracing the mundane. And, you know, this is a simple compositional experiment where if I position my camera at the eye level and I'm looking at this sculpture, there's going to be some things in the background that distract from that foreground. And so this is, to me, the beauty of composition. It's about visual problem solving, putting the foreground and the background together to make something readable, to make something coherent in an image. And so by simply dropping to a low angle and uplifting this sculpture into the center of the frame, I'm able to create a composition that positions this sculpture as the hero, separated from the background. You know, in the foreground we have this beautiful gesture, and then the sky becomes the backdrop. And I'm looking at this building to the left of it, I'm looking at the light to the right of it, and how I can frame this sculpture in between those two opposing elements, such as the light and the building. right? There's also some trees above, and if I wanted to make a vertical composition, which actually looks very nice here, I can make a vertical composition including the trees, right? So there's different ways that you can approach the same thing depending on the orientation of your camera and where you position yourself and the camera itself. And this is critical, right? Where you position yourself and your camera will ultimately determine the result of the photograph. Where I can get really close here and try something different and new that I haven't before, which is to focus on the gesture of the hand. You know, eliminating the head of the sculpture, focusing on the hand, focusing on the gesture, as the most important element of the frame. And when I'm on the streets and I'm photographing people spontaneously, when I'm photographing moments that are fleeting, obviously they're not going to be standing still. They're going to be there's going to be movement, there's going to be dynamics, you know, where this kind of moment that I'm photographing here, of this gesture, of this sculpture by, I believe, Walker Hancock, titled Air, and this man sort of with his arm outstretched in flight, is something that I've captured over and over again countless times. I think I got shit on by a bird. Something just, is that bird poop, man? Yo, I swear, what is that? Maybe it's good luck. Fortune favors the bold, baby. And so that's something that I've actually photographed in the moment spontaneously throughout my travels, where, you know, I've had countless times throughout all of the world where I photographed people in flight doing backflips, you know, those sort of moments where somebody leaps. And, you know, that's what photographing this moment reminds me of. And actually there was a time in Zambia, Africa, where I was riding my bike along the dirt trail, or the sand rather, actually, and yeah, I stumbled across these boys who were working, and they were gathering buckets of sand that they then used to build and make bricks, I believe. And so when I arrived with my camera, I actually got off my bike, I took my camera out, and I started to photograph the scene of the workers on the back of the truck. And eventually, because I was there and just being playful and just making photographs, the boys started to perform for me, and they went over to the sand. They started to do these crazy acrobatics and tricks and things, and it was a really cool scene, right? There was this kind of abandoned building in the background, a very sandy scene, lots of movement, lots of energy, lots of spontaneity, really unpredictable, you know, to have the timing to photograph the boys in flight as they jump and leap and flip. It requires repetition. It requires positioning yourself and your camera at the right place at the right time. And so as I was photographing from eye level, I noticed the boys, when they leap, were being sort of cluttered from the background, where it wasn't being, or the photograph wasn't becoming as legible as I would like. And so by dropping to a very low angle and then using the background of the sky to my advantage, I was able to photograph this boy in mid-flight doing an incredible flip. Similar to my recent trip to Mumbai, India, we had these cool dudes on the beach practicing their backflips, and yeah, it was basically the same situation, where if I were to photograph at my level, the beach would get in the way, the ocean would get in the way, but by dropping to that low angle and separating the subject from the background, I was able to find success in that moment. And I actually believe that, oh, I can actually even practice a panning shot. That's kind of cool. Maybe they're just experimental, but I actually quickly adjusted my snap focus to 3.5 meters. And so actually on my recent trip to Coney Island, on the boardwalk, I mean, there's just chaos, which is great, don't get me wrong, but I prefer to photograph on the beach itself. And I'm gonna get into a confrontation right now. This is perfect. What's up, bro? I'm doing a little video in the morning about photography. What's up, bro?
You just put me on the camera, bro?
It's like this experimental photo. It's kind of like a motion.
Why are you so close, bro?
It's like a.
And I don't even know you, but
no, I'm just saying.
Like 2 feet. 2 feet. Just.
I was just showing you the photograph. You can't actually see yourself.
No, bro. Can we delete that, John?
Yeah, no problem.
You man, like right now?
Yeah, it's.
Or it's gonna go against the copyrights?
No, it's not gonna go against the copyrights.
It might.
It's all deleted right there. Delete one image. Boom.
And that's not a camera even?
No, I'm just recording my audio.
Oh, it's just audio?
Yeah, I'm just talking. I'm just doing a video about photography, bro. You too, man. Cheers. And so, essentially, when I was in Coney Island, there was this boardwalk, right? And so I was only there one other time. And so when I arrived in Coney Island, yeah, I don't want to delete the video, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, you know, what the fuck? So when I arrived in Coney Island, I was trying to photograph on the boardwalk, and, you know, on the boardwalk, there's lots of people, and it's actually really difficult to photograph on the boardwalk because of this. It's like you're packed like sardines, and it's just generally hard to separate the subjects from the background on the boardwalk itself. And so because of this, I found more success hitting the beach and photographing along the shoreline. And as I was photographing along the shoreline, the background of the ocean, the sand, you know, these things help separate the subjects from the background itself. And I really do think about this a lot when I'm photographing in new places, and I try to position myself in the location where I can find the most success with my photography. And so, yeah, photographing on the beach, it just made a lot more sense to me. And then when I was photographing the dancers on the boardwalk, I made sure to drop to low angles and use the sky and use the monument of the amusement ride as my focal point in the background, and separating the subject from the background itself. And this is something that you'll find time and time again when photographing in new places, is it becomes difficult for you to arrive in a new place and decipher in your head, you know, where do I need to be, you know, where's the choke point, you know, where should I position myself? And you'll find that through practice and repetition, it becomes like second nature, where you always know, no matter what moment is coming before you, where you should position yourself, your camera, etc. And so, yeah, I guess with confrontation, yeah, I mean, obviously, I handled it as quickly and honestly as I could. I actually never had to delete a photo, and I haven't been confronted literally since I haven't been confronted in years. So this is perfect. Like, that was actually I'm actually so glad I was just confronted, so I can show how harmless it may seem, even being in, like, you know, like I'm on a freaking, like, it's like 5 a.m. on a trail and there's no sunlight. And, you know, just some random kid, you know, even though, you know, the photo was stupid anyway. It's like, you just delete it, right? I never deleted a photo from the Ricoh before, so I didn't know how to do it ever initially. I was like trying to find the button. I was like, oh shit. But yeah, I just figured out how to do it in the moment. And yeah, you can see some of the photos I'm making right now, like this. We have the sculpture. I photographed the hand. I actually believe I prefer this photograph of the sculpture from a vertical angle. And so with the Ricoh, what I love about using this camera is I can experiment more with my compositions by using an LCD screen, where, you know, even in this low light situation, the LCD screen becomes legible and I can see clearly. Whereas if I was using an optical viewfinder, yeah, everything would be extremely dark right now. And so the LCD screen helps me play more with my compositions and tinker. And so the most fundamental reason why I practice every single day, you know, walking this same mundane lane, is to challenge my curiosity. And so the goal, ultimately, of a street photographer is to increase your curiosity by 1% each and every day. And I believe that through remaining open, right, without preconceived notions of what you will find, you know, you'll always be surprised where, wow, look at this. Let me make sure if, yeah, snap focus infinity. I just love these trees, you know, like I'm essentially challenging my curiosity in how I photograph. And trying to find new ways to photograph the same thing over and over again, right? Like one of my really eye-opening or just mind-blowing thoughts I had about photography, which is really simple, is that you cannot make the same photograph twice. And you know, where light and the way that light changes over time will provide gradual nuances and changes to the scenes that I photograph, right? Where I can position myself at the same vantage point with the same camera, with the same focal length each and every day and make a photograph, but it will never be the same. And this is just something that I try to embrace, this mindset of infinite possibilities. See, right now I'm photographing the way that the light's just casting down this skate park and the reflective surface. It rained, you know, where there's differences based on the time of day, right? Where the light's just starting to come out, it's just starting to turn blue. I get to enjoy this sort of communion with God, with the beautiful sounds of the birds, and just look at the different surfaces, right? Where the surfaces are now wet. There's nuances and changes upon our canvas that we can embrace every single day, no matter if you're in the same place. And for me, I feel this sensation of abundance through recognizing the infinite and endless potential of the mundane and photographing in the same place over and over again. And I find joy in it, and I really enjoy the daily practice of challenging myself to find new ways to photograph. And so with this idea in mind of curiosity, this is the goal, right? It's to increase your curiosity by 1% each day and to simply photograph more. And so the other mindset shift that I've had, oh, this is really cool. See, I haven't photographed the art museum from this angle in this time of day before. There's always something new. Look at is that a bat or a bird? Wow. Yeah, one of the biggest mindset shifts I had was, instead of thinking about topping your previous photo and trying to make a better photo, what if we just considered our next photograph as our best photograph, right? Where the goal is to just continuously press the shutter more, to keep moving forward and to just keep photographing. Is that not our goal? Is that not our aim as photographers, is to produce more photographs? You know, after all, I believe this is the ultimate goal. And so by walking more, you will see more. And the more that you will see and do, yeah, the more that you will inevitably photograph. And so, yeah, perhaps the most critical thing that we should consider as photographers is movement itself, walking more, and just shooting more. And I actually believe that we should shoot despite how we feel about it, or, you know, if we want to or not. You know, as much as I think that we should be photographing from this like spirit of play and joy, there's something about the discipline of coming out here each morning and just practicing my photography that keeps me sharp and keeps me going. And I do this walk pretty much despite the circumstances, even if it's raining or just whatever, if it's like a shitty day or whatever the case may be, right? And I always just make the effort to come out here. And I think there is something about discipline and staying disciplined and continuously photographing daily, sort of like that basketball player who's trying to make better shots or increase the chances of them making their shot. You know, so when I'm photographing out here, you know, I'll make some snapshots here and there of the same things. I see like the sculpture, then I'll see the moon from different angles. Like there's the moon up there, it's pretty cool. Put this graffiti in the foreground. Now the moon is covered from the clouds. You know, there are some interesting things that you can find during this hour, I think, in terms of light. Especially on days like this where we have dew on the plants, you know, you can even experiment with the macro mode. I'm just looking for the right moment to do that. And so, yeah, I think that orienting yourself in the morning with practice, you know, just starting the day off with a daily sort of practice is critical for me. You know, this is something that I embrace. In the past, I used to practice here in Philadelphia on the streets, and then after a few months of practicing, I would go for a trip somewhere, and it's always helped me remain sharp and focused, where I'm photographing with repetition every single day for a few months or a year, and then I'll decide that I want to make a trip somewhere for a month, and then when I arrive in this new place, I'm just ready to go, right? Like I've been producing photos for a year straight, and at the end of that year of practicing in mundane Philadelphia, when I go to an interesting location, I've always been able to come home with successful photographs because of my practice that I put in each day. And I think that's important to stress, and it's important to highlight, is this notion of practice. And actually consider, ooh, see, it's cool too when you photograph the skyline at different times of the day, because now I get to get the, see, I can even include this truck in the foreground because the light's hitting it. It's actually really cool. Yeah, just P mode, point and shoot. Experiment with the exposure compensation. Like I'll go to 0, +3, +0.7, +1, and experiment more with the exposure. Sometimes I'll make the photo brighter. Sometimes I'll make the photo darker. You know, there's something about this simple notion of painting with light, drawing with light, the sort of essence of photography, light and shadow, that fuels me. And by doing simple tricks like increasing the exposure compensation, lowering the exposure compensation, making brighter photos, making darker photos, right? These simple changes, you know, spark my creative spirit. And yeah, just one fun thought I've had is, okay, let's go. We got 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, buzzer beater. Yeah, one fun thought I had about this walk that I do each day is it's kind of like Tutorial Island. Like I actually just went through a pretty good tutorial. I even got confronted. You know, I got to practice my I got to practice my interaction skills, my charisma, you know, increasing my stat point like a video game. You know, I find that when I arrive at the trail and I practice my photography and I shoot pictures here, it's kind of like I'm in a target range in you know, for like Counter-Strike, like these first-person shooter games on the computer. They have these like softwares like Aim Labs where you practice shooting targets that are moving or that are stationary so that you can orient your reticle, adjust your sensitivity. Sort of any video game that you start, there's always a tutorial island where they teach you the buttons, they teach you the layout, how to jump, how to roll, how to select, how to shoot, how to aim, how to zoom in, how to open the menu, you know, how to find the locations on the map. And that's kind of what I feel like I'm doing right now each morning. It's like return to Tutorial Island every day, you know, just embrace that monotonous and repetitive practice, like grinding in a video game, practicing your aim in Aim Labs, sort of sharpening your sword. You know, there's something about the Tutorial Island in a video game that I think about when I'm here. I'm like, this is my Tutorial Island, and yeah, this is just somewhere that I return to each and every day. And you know, I feel as though when I'm photographing as well, it's like when in doubt, I just return to locations that I know are beautiful, because I don't know, I just feel good here, right? Like I feel good starting the day off at this elevated place. Now I'm photographing that beautiful little fountain using a vertical composition. You know, I can do a horizontal composition, lower the exposure compensation, negative 0.7, negative 0.1, sort of crush the background, crush the shadows. You know, making the photograph darker, making the photograph brighter, tinkering, playing with the orientation of the camera. And so one of the things I do is I just visit elevated surfaces. I visit these elevated spaces like the cliffside, you know, behind the Philadelphia Museum of Art, or, ooh, the way the light's hitting the art museum is cool. Or I'll go to the Benjamin Franklin Bridge and I'll stand upon the center of the bridge at this high vantage point, you know, looking out towards the horizon, looking out towards the Delaware River, and I'll make a photograph and I'll think and I'll look and, oh, look, you can see the boathouses are illuminated today. You know, I'm up here pretty early. It's pretty dark these days, actually, in the morning now. And so, yeah, when in doubt, I'll always visit the bridge. I'll try to photograph the view from the bridge in different ways. I'll try to photograph the bridge itself from low angles. Maybe I go under the bridge, maybe I'm on top of the bridge, you know, photographing the infrastructure, photographing the details. I've got cobwebs on me right now. And yeah, I just find that the name of the game really isn't the mundane and thriving in it and just working with what you got. And so if you return to the same walk each morning and start your day off with a quick sort of warm up, through practice, yeah, I actually do think that we can increase our curiosity. And is this not the goal? You know, I want to increase my curiosity by 1% every single day. Embracing the spirit of play, sort of just not taking this thing too seriously, sort of photographing casually, right? Embracing this sort of snapshot approach. Yeah, it's been the most liberating way I've ever photographed in my life, and I highly recommend, yeah, practicing. If you have a Ricoh, yeah, I suggest using a wrist strap. I think that using the wrist strap, you just become more connected to the camera itself. Obviously, you know, it's connected to your wrist, and yeah, I believe that when it's connected to your wrist, when it's connected to your body, when it's connected to your hand, you kind of forget that you even have a camera on you. And yeah, you just don't think as much and you just shoot. And I think that's the goal, right? Just shoot. You know, don't think, just shoot. So yeah, I don't know, this is just what I do every day, just practicing my photography. Just wanted to share random thoughts and the experience of what I do in the morning to get my creative juices flowing and just warm up my shot, basically similar to that of going to the basketball court. That's what I'd say. It's the same kind of deal. Yeah, just increase your curiosity by 1% each day and make more photos and practice.